Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into a divorce case out of Taiwan that is so much more than just a family dispute. Seriously, this thing put the entire legal system on trial, and it makes you ask a really tough question. What is divorce law actually for? And that's the heart of it, right? This is the exact dilemma that bounced around between three different courts. In Taiwan, the law, traditionally, was pretty clear. Only the innocent person in the marriage could ask for a divorce. So, what happens when a relationship is just completely, utterly shattered, but the person who lit the match is the one asking to walk away? So let's meet the couple at the center of all this. Wen Chin-ho and Xu Huichen. They got married way back in 1980. They raised 3 kids, ran a business together, a whole life. But by the time this all went to court, you wouldn't even think they were describing the same marriage. When the husband, Wen, filed for divorce, his side of the story was pretty simple. He said his wife, Xu, just up and left him, took all their money, and stuck him with a bunch of debt. But her story? It was a world apart. She said she didn't just leave, she fled. She said she was escaping decades of abuse. She claimed he was the one having affairs, that he even had another child, and then, to top it all off, he changed the locks so she couldn't come back even if she wanted to. Okay, so you have 2 totally conflicting stories. The first court to take a crack at this, the Taichung District Court, came back with what seemed like a pretty straightforward decision. The judge's thinking was pretty direct. I mean, they'd been separated for 7 years, no contact. The court basically said, look, this marriage only exists on paper. It's broken beyond repair. And here's the crucial part, how the court saw the blame. It said, yeah, the husband was violent in the past, but it also decided that the wife leaving and staying gone for so long also played a part in the marriage breaking down. So because they both had some fault, the court said either one of them could file. And just like that, the divorce was granted. You'd think that was the end of it, but not even close. Okay, so this is where the story takes a huge turn. The wife, Hu Huichen, she wasn't having it. She appealed the decision. And what happened next at the High Court? It completely flipped the entire case on its head. Yep, you heard that right. The High Court looked at the very same case, the same couple, and came to the exact opposite conclusion. Suddenly, the divorce was off. So the big question is, what changed? Well, the court heard some powerful new evidence that painted a much, much clearer and, honestly, much darker picture of this marriage. A ton of new evidence came out. The couple's own children testified, confirming their father's long history of violence. The court found out he'd had an affair with an employee and even fathered a child with her. And with all that new information, his wife leaving didn't look like abandonment anymore. It looked like a justifiable escape for her own safety, especially since he was the one who changed the locks and blocked her from ever coming back. And all this new evidence allowed the High Court to bring out a major legal rule, the solely at fault spouse rule. It's pretty much what it sounds like. Under Taiwan's civil code, if one person is 100% to blame for the marriage falling apart, they lose their right to ask for a divorce. Only the innocent person gets to make that call. So now, the High Court's thinking was crystal clear. It looked at the evidence and declared the husband was the solely at fault spouse. And since the marriage was broken because of him, the law said he couldn't be the one to end it. Divorce denied. Now, just when you think it can't get any more complicated, it does. The husband appealed again, this time taking it all the way to Taiwan's Supreme Court. And at this point, this wasn't just about one couple anymore. This became a trial of the at-fault divorce law itself. Now, you have to understand, this case didn't happen in a vacuum. Check out the timeline. While all this was going on, something else major was happening. In March of 2023, Taiwan's Constitutional Court, that's an even higher court, made a landmark ruling about the at-fault law, and that changed everything. So the Supreme Court wasn't just looking at this one marriage anymore. It had to factor in this brand new ruling from the Constitutional Court. And that ruling said, yeah, the at-fault law is mostly okay, but there are some situations where using it is just obviously too harsh. And you can really feel this shift in thinking in this one quote from the Supreme Court's judgment. They said that maintaining a marriage that is merely a hollow shell is not always appropriate. Basically, the point of the law isn't to force people to stay in a relationship that's already dead. So, with this new perspective from a higher court, the Supreme Court delivered its final judgment. And it wasn't a simple yes or no. Instead, it was more like a profound new question for the entire legal system to grapple with. Instead of giving a final answer, the Supreme Court did something really interesting. It overturned the High Court's ruling, But it didn't grant the divorce. It sent the case back down to the High Court with a brand new set of instructions. The Supreme Court basically created a new three-step test. Step 1. You have to admit that after nearly a decade apart, this marriage is, for all intents and purposes, over. Step 2. You can't just blindly apply that at-fault rule like a robot. And finally, Step 3, and this is the game changer. You have to ask a new question. Is it obviously too harsh to force this husband, even though he's the one at fault, to stay legally trapped in this dead marriage? And that right there is the massive shift. The case is no longer just about punishing someone for what they did in the past. It's now about the human cost of trapping someone, even the guilty party, in a relationship that's already over. It's a move away from pure punishment and towards a sense of individual freedom. Which leaves us with this final, really challenging question. When a marriage is broken, what should the law care about more? Getting justice for what happened in the past? Or giving people the freedom to have a future? This case doesn't hand us an easy answer, but it forces us to really think about the deep conflict between those two very different ideas.